We're on hold for a pen, just hang in there, guys.
I thought I was going to take one out. A pencil?
That's all I got. I don't know if you need to do.
Would you please pass this to
I have
my
it.
secretary?
Yeah.
My love. Mine.
Okay.
Okay.
I was late to the party.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the zoning and planning board meeting. Everyone rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act has been given by the clerk in the following manner: posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Clerk's office, emailed to retrospect, and the Courier Post. May I have roll call, please?
Chairwoman Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Oakley.
Here.
Uh,
Deborah's excused.
Debbie, yes. Mr. Wachowski.
Here.
Mr. Vanella.
Here.
Mr. Stone.
He's on vacation, remember, told us.
Oh, he did, yes, last month, he's excused, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Laverty.
Here.
Mayor, I don't know, he said he was
I
coming.
think he's coming,
Mr. Ranieri.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here.
And Ms. Dodge.
She's excused.
Mr. Rowan.
Here.
Mr. Pettit.
yeah. Excused.
And Mr. Knight.
I think he's going to be here.
See you somewhere.
Okay. A motion is in order for the approval of the minutes of the 7/11/18 minutes. Anybody have any questions on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
Mr. Ranieri, Mr. White, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Old business, resolution 1813, Mr. Rowan.
Yes, the first resolution is 314 Shepherd Avenue, Block 94, Lot 2. This was an application. The applicant was proposing to enclose an existing patio carport. As the board may remember, the proposed enclosure is actually, even though that we had to grant a side yard variance, it's bringing it more closely
Compliance.
into our ordinance, and the last meeting, we acted favorably on that application.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
Make a motion.
Mr. Ockley?
Second.
Mr. Wachowski, roll call, please.
Second.
No,
Who was the second, Mr.
Mr.
Wachowski?
Wachowski. Oh, Mr. Vanella, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, was it Mr. Vanella?
Yes, I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Vanella.
Yes.
Mr. Wachowski. Mr. Ockley.
Yes.
And Mr. Laverty. Mr. Ranieri.
Yes.
Resolution 1814, Mr. Rowan.
Yes, the next resolution is for 828 West 3rd Avenue, Block 161, Lot 11. As the board may recall, this application was for permission and bulk variances and waivers to construct an addition to an existing garage. I believe the testimony by the applicant at that time, he would be able to remove vehicles that were on the street. I believe he said a boat and
Yes.
other vehicles, and to be able to store in the
Inside the garage, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
You ever recused on that one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it worked, yeah.
It was because of
Yep.
skeleton.
Mhm.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Make a motion.
Mr. Vanella, Mr. Ockley, roll call, please.
Mrs. Cleveland.
Yes.
Mr. Vanella.
Yes.
Mr. Wachowski.
Yes.
Mr. Ockley.
Yes.
Mr. Laverty.
Yes.
And Mr. Ranieri, you can't vote.
Sustained?
Abstain.
That as well. I will abstain as well.
You have sustained, damn it.
And he had to abstain on the other one also?
I'm sorry.
Not on the other one, the Farrell, they were both council people.
Right, did you step down the list, didn't you?
I did, he voted.
Did you vote on that? Did you on roll call?
I may have done that, yes.
Your hand,
We'll
I
just note that.
I will abstain from 1813 as well.
put your hand
I
out.
will-
Put your hand out.
I thought that was my job as mother. Ranieri,
Okay,
yes.
new business, a discussion of the PSE&G project. Mr.
I could listen to this, right?
Absolutely. Let's see why not. The engineer did email me today. Mr. Pettit is on vacation. He has had a conversation about this, and he didn't seem to have too many concerns. The only thing he wanted to pass along to the board was that there is a stipulation, basically, I'll just get and read this to you. This is from Mr. Brian Cleary, who works for Mr. Pettit. It says, I spoke with the engineer for PSE&G project, and he had one question he was hoping to get feedback from the board on. The ordinance requires that existing trees larger than 4 inches need to be shown on the plans. He wanted to know if the board would be in support of a waiver from provided information. Other than that, we had no issues with our review letter. I sent him back a note that knowing that this is, a very, a woodsy property, what would his opinion be? And they wrote back to me that they're required to show the trees per the submission requirements, but we cannot find anything in the ordinance requiring any sort of tree compensation. As a result, I don't think the board can limit the number of trees to be removed. That being the case, we would not have any problem with the board waiving this requirement. So obviously, if the board has a problem with that, we can go into further discussion with that. But as a professional, Mr. Pettit and his board thought that it would be fine if we went ahead and waived that requirement.
Madam Chairman, I don't think we can waive that this evening without the public being present.
I concur. I know, I concur. I think it was just for the discussion.
For consideration, but we
Yes.
should consider it again and have the applicant address why that should be waived. I mean, our engineer has made an opinion, if the
Yes.
testimony and our engineer concur, then I think we can discuss that and pass that waiver.
Yeah, then no action will be taken tonight on that, just a matter of point of discussion. Now, we have a letter from Mr. Pettit on his review of the substation. And unfortunately, due to the fact that we had to move the meeting because of the night out, he is away on vacation, and Brian and Dave had conflicts for this evening. But, I think what we should basically do is just take the review letter home with us and take a look at the plans. And, I don't know, and again, Mr. Bach, obviously, you're going to be involved in this in some capacity, being the borough engineer.
Yes.
If you wanted to step in and give any opinions or anything on at this point in time, anything that you think needs to be taken care of, Nick and I discussed that today. I mean, I did tell John that, we will be deferring to you tonight.
Only that we've already had preliminary meetings with PSE&G. It's really necessary upgrades to the substation and the switching equipment. The disturbance should be relatively minor, as you see in the plans. They are willing also to work with the borough and hopefully providing some easements for some future sanitary sewer connections that we're anticipating, which might be able to eliminate some areas of our borough that still have septic systems. So I'm familiar with the project. It seems that not having a great impact.
Pretty de minimis.
Yeah, I have no concerns with this one.
Okay.
And I do have a copy of the plan, so I'll take a look.
Okay. Let me just ask you this. Are you and John going to be working together on this?
No, John will do his review for the planning board.
Okay.
We were looking at it as how it would affect borough.
Right.
So,
Obviously, I want to make sure the two of you guys are
oh yeah,
communicating.
we'll communicate.
Yeah.
We already spoke, I believe Mark did, about sidewalks, which was a
Right.
concern.
I mean, you're the borough engineer, he's the planning board engineer.
Yep.
I want to make sure that we marry everything up and we make sure that when they come in for their review, that everything that you want to happen.
I'm going to reinforce
Happens.
with Mr. Pettit's office the concerns that we raised at our initial meeting with BSCG.
Right.
Very specifically, the borough's desire to see what can be done with sidewalks along
Right.
this front into their property, as well as those easements we discussed.
Yeah, I don't want this board granting anything without making sure that all the borough's best interests have been met as far as you're
And
concerned.
Joyce has been doing a great job of giving me all the review letters and everything else. If you would send me the Pettit review letter, I didn't have that in the package. But we've been tracking all your
Yeah, you
applications
can have a copy of it.
just to make sure that, the borough's governing body's interest in the planning board.
Yeah, I mean, I want us to be fluid.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Steve, there you go.
That was,
Chairwoman,
Yes, ma'am.
also I had a woman from Splund come into my office a few weeks ago.
Okay.
They are the people that cut the trees for the electric company, they trim them.
Yes.
And she wanted to talk about Evesham Road from the substation to the pipe.
Okay.
And they're planning to, they really don't want to trim the trees because of the hideous way they end up.
Yeah, they do.
They end up with that V cut into them. They are supposedly, when they get permission, it's a county road, they are going to try to get the residents to agree to the trees being totally removed, that they can't be trimmed properly. And said they would be offering replacement trees to the residents, and if they didn't want it in front of their home, they would put it in their yards. Now, this is what the woman told me. I received an email on July 20th from Jay Kaplan, who is the vegetation management supervisor, and he sent me all this information on trimming trees and the trees they would be offering. There's a whole list of them here. Now, I don't know if this is the impact we're talking about.
I don't think that falls within our purview, to be honest with you. I
Now,
don't
do you
think,
think this is separate from what's going on at the substation?
Yes.
You do?
yeah.
And I will tell you because it's,
Okay.
and sorry to interject,
No, no, no,
but
no.
because it's public right of way and they have the right to do whatever they want to, unfortunately, to those trees within 10 feet of their equipment,
Yeah.
the service lines of their equipment.
High tension
But-
lines, whatever they want to do.
But if you would send that to me also, the borough governing body should have a say. in
Yeah,
that.
I did give it to all council. I wasn't sure whether it was
I
connected.
don't believe it's within our purview.
Yeah,
that
it-
count too? Or no?
Oh, you want my email copy of this? This is what
sure,
This is what the
Thank you.
vegetation manager said.
of the tree company.
This was the actual, she handed this to me when she was here.
I'll scan it and I'll email that.
Yeah, well, and her name.
Yep, I'll scan it and
And that's
email
showing you.
That's the route.
And some of it was incorrect when she came in,
Yeah.
because they talked about Gloucester Township. Said, that's on me, you have to go to see.
No, I just want to make
Gloucester
sure,
Township.
and I'll look at this for governing body and also report back to the planning board.
Thank you.
What protections that we have.
Right.
A wholesale removal of trees along a large route is going to have an impact to the aesthetics of the town. So
Absolutely.
I just want to see what, they're allowed to trim, they're not allowed to remove.
Right,
So they can trim 10 feet, so they can cut the middle out of a tree.
that's right.
But they can't take it all the way down without someone's permission. And if it's in the county right away, still in our town, we should be able to have some input into that decision process. So I'll
So
look at
we
that.
have to accept that ugly V in the center of the tree? Oh, it's ugly.
Yeah, but they do come back, and honestly, sometimes when you take a tree down, if it's close to a telephone pole, you have to make sure that telephone pole is not going to give way this way, because the tree rotation, the root system on a tree that big can be incredible. And you have to be very careful with your markouts, and with it can cause all kinds of problems taking a tree down, and we don't want to be responsible.
Oh, no.
You would not be responsible, the borough would not be responsible. But I think I'm going to look at it as a governing body, and then when the governing body makes a decision, I'll make sure this board knows it as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Is there anything else that I want to discuss this evening about PSCNG? Okay. Well, I think at this point, Steve, if you have a moment, we'll go into the redevelopment.
And again, this is not a long presentation this evening. This is a refresher of where we left off. We had our study completed. We went over the findings of the study. In the study book is all the criteria for the statute of how we evaluated all the parcels. Our recommendation is that the entirety of the blocks listed in the study should be considered an area in need of redevelopment. And what we're hoping for, as early as the September meeting, but no later than the October meeting, I have to say it, Joyce, is when we would have the public hearing. The reason it is a very onerous task that besides having public notice in the newspapers, at least twice in the newspapers, a week apart and at least 10 days before the hearing,
When would
each
be now?
Not yet. So you would have 2 weeks to do all this stuff. But also, all of the property owners, every single property owner in all of those blocks has to receive a certified mailing with a copy of the same notice that's in the newspaper. That is a requirement by statute. So that is a lot of properties if you remember the map. So we're going to work along. It appears that it's probably going to be October.
What's the content of the notice? Have you seen it?
You have not seen it? Well, I'll read it.
Hey, Steve, real quick, just, I have retained all of our rewrites of this stuff. Do I need to, like the latest one I have is for, and I've read them all, but the latest one I have, master plan re-examination was December 17.
This is not master
I
plan.
know, no, just like, that's the latest one for master plan. I can get rid of all previous ones.
You get rid of even that one because there will be, if you have not received a letter, there should be a master plan signed and sealed. Did we ever get that to you, Joyce?
I don't think so.
All right.
I have to look, Steve.
Yeah, it's up, but it-
I have to look. I know we made a whole new drawer of master plan, or present and
On the
past.
Staples box.
And the latest one I have on
I got it.
the
No?
determination of needs, Steve, is December 17th.
Correct.
Well,
So-
those two, the current ones?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the master plan, just so you know, if you want to get rid of it, feel free. We're going to do a PDF copy. We're going to have, give it to the planning board secretary and the clerk, and hopefully that can be posted to your website.
Oh, good, yeah.
And that way, that's what we're trying to do, is trying to have some of these record documents that you don't look at for every 10 years, just have them residing on the website so we never lose them. And also, anybody can look at them.
That's right.
If they need to. Technically, most planners that come in for a use variance before this board, when you serve as a board of adjustment, a lot of the planners will say that they have reviewed your master plan, they reviewed the updates. That way it'll be more readily available.
Great.
So I'm going
Somebody
to,
did send it to me, because we made a whole new, I remember making a whole new drawer.
Okay.
The whole past and the present.
and
But
if we
I'll
haven't,
check and let
and
you
if we haven't sent it to you digitally, so you can post it on the website, let us know. But usually that's part of our checklist that,
I would need a disc, wouldn't I, or something to put
I
on
can
the
email it to
website?
you.
You can email it to me?
yeah, or they could Dropbox or
Okay.
other. But in general, I'll just read what the notice will say. Please take notice that the Borough of Runnemede Land Use Board desires to inform you that in accordance with the New Jersey Local Redevelopment and Housing Law and with the state statute called out, I'll read it. NJSA 48-12A-1 and specifically NJSA 48-12A-8 through 6, the Land Use Board will conduct a public hearing for the purposes of investigating and determining whether certain properties within the Borough of Runnemede qualify as a, quote, area in need of redevelopment, end quote, pursuant to the criteria set forth in NJSA 40A-12A through 5. And then it's going to list that the redevelopment area are the entirety of the blocks that are listed in the report.
We're still thinking 350 parcels.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my
Okay.
head, but all the parcels that we listed
Okay.
are documented.
That's fine.
Public hearing will be held on, whether it's October, whatever the second Thursday of October or September, at 7 p.m. At which time the Land Use Board will hear any persons who are in attendance or are interested in or would be affected by a determination of the above-mentioned properties. A map in the report has been prepared by the Borough of Runnemede professionals, Bach Associates, and submitted and is on file with the Borough Clerk 10 days prior to the hearing for any interested members. So we tell them where they can get the
That's
copies. Yes. And also, we're going to get that to you electronically. So if anybody comes in and wants to over or you get a copy, we
Email
have,
to
we have
them.
no problem with sharing.
Yeah.
Can we put it on our website? Would you suggest that or not? Is that a work problem?
I wouldn't put that on the website. I only put adopted documents
Okay.
on the website only because people can take documents electronically and do whatever they want with them nowadays. So I don't want it to be anything to be taken out of context, so, rather than they have the full stuff. At the conclusion of the hearing and after listening to the testimony of the planner and members of the public, the land use board will determine whether or not the above referenced property is in need of redevelopment. The governing body of the Borough of Runnemede has determined that it will not use eminent domain powers for the proposed redevelopment area, and that the proposed redevelopment area shall be a non-condemnation redevelopment area.
Is that not bold and black?
It can be.
Might be a good idea.
I agree. Well, let's put it this way, so
I think you should, that would be like, oh, whew.
Yeah, and that's why I yelled it for me, so I made sure I pulled that out, because that's what I was doing. But we can pull that.
You put dollar signs next to it.
And then it goes on, a binding resolution that the properties are or are not in need of non-condemnation redevelopment will be afforded to the governing body for consideration. And then it goes on to say that this notice follows specific information in respect to a February 2008 New Jersey Superior Court decision, the reference decision, that we're following the notice as part of the law. And it says again, a finding that these properties are in need of redevelopment by the land use board and it's officially designated, and if officially designated by governing body, is a finding of public purpose. However, the governing body has determined that it will not use its eminent domain powers. So he said that 3 times to try to reinforce. And then last one, affected property owners will have 45 days from the date of determination for the hearing in order to do an appeal. It goes through both of them. So what we try to do, especially in non-condemnation redevelopment, we try to reinforce this in the newspapers, and it's the same notice that each and every property owner will get.
You can send that to us? You give it to Joyce to email?
Yes, yes, so
Thank
Joyce,
you.
when I send this to you tomorrow, and I think what we have to do is just double check with the powers that be of when we're having the hearing, and that way I can actually put it in there, and then Joyce can follow forward to everybody. So I think it's leading towards that.
So it's,
October?
can I ask that notice?
Well, I don't want to say that. It's,
The notice itself can be sent as is. Is that what you're telling me, as it stands there?
yeah, as soon as I go.
Not addressed to anyone?
No, and yes, so the public notice for the hearing is, in this form, it's the same thing that appears in the newspaper. There is, and I'll read this out loud too, because I have to have it with me. If a property is found to be in need of redevelopment and the governing body agrees with your findings and approves the referral back to the governing body that this area should be an area in need of redevelopment, then an individual letter, individually addressed to the property owner. So it wouldn't just be the address in the envelope, it would have to be.
But that would only be if someone came in front of the board. and-
No, this is after you have to say that to whom it may concern, the Borough of Runnemede has conducted a preliminary redevelopment and rehabilitation needs investigation for the Blackbirds Pike study area, which has been the subject of public hearings and recommended by the planning board on X date 2019, and we'll actually have a resolution number in there. Upon receipt of this recommendation and consideration thereof, the Borough Council has adopted whatever the Borough Council's resolution and date determining that the recommended delineated area outlined in the report and illustrated on map 1 of the report is a redevelopment area. In accordance with the provisions of the local housing redevelopment law, with the statute reference, enclosed herewith find a copy of the map delineating the areas and the resolutions of the planning board and Borough Council. So you have to give them the map of the study area, which is the same one in there.
Is this the second mailing?
This is the second mailing. This is not before the
This is
hearing.
after the public
This is
hearing.
after, yes.
That will address each individual property owner.
We're still mailing the public notice to each individual property owner within the study area. It's not the 200-foot around, it's the people that are in the study area.
That's the first.
The block and lots, right. So if everything's successful, then there will be a mailing with the map and the 2 resolutions to each and every.
When you say it's successful,
So what if you-
will the board take a vote?
The board hopefully will take a vote at the hearing. And then with that vote, Part of that resolution will be referring, and I'll get you a sample of the resolution to do this, but that'll be referring it back to governing body. Governing body will say, yep, we agree with what you say, planning board. And if they agree, they'll pass the resolution. When they make this,
That letter goes out?
then this letter goes out. And Joyce, I have a memo that tells you all these things. All right? All right.
So, at the hearing, anybody who's interested will be here.
Anybody
With a
that's-
lot of questions, right?
Yes.
And are we gonna prepare for them, or we are prepared for them?
We're prepared. So what we will be doing, if I may, everything that I presented you on the report, I'm going to redo. And say that these are the study areas, I'll confirm my maps, I'll go through the criteria, and I'll go through our findings. Then the public will have the opportunity, anybody from the public, it's not just people within the study areas, anybody that's interested, they will go through and they will put their thoughts on the record, and they have the opportunity to ask questions, not only of the board, but also your professionals.
And the meeting ends at 11 o'clock regardless. If we have to have a special meeting or whatever, we'll do it, but we'll do whatever it takes.
Yes.
Legally, the meeting ends at 11.
Yeah.
So I don't really think we'll have a big room for what we do.
So, we're gonna probably have a lot of questions you'll be answering, and also Dave will probably be answering a lot of them too, right?
Well, they'll probably be directed to Steve.
The legal
People are going to probably, even though we might have in bold, Steve might have in bold letters that this is not an eminent domain, I'm sure there's going to be people that don't understand that.
Well, that's why I was going to make a suggestion. Why don't we send out with the first mailing, frequently asked questions regarding the redevelopment?
That's
And
a
then we
good
can
idea.
have,
I can't.
I'm sorry.
I can't. This
no,
is,
can we put it in our mailing, not from you?
I
What do you
would,
recommend it?
I would not.
Yeah.
Anytime you have deviated, if you did, in the public notice, and I probably read it over quickly, but I read too quickly, but saying that this notice contains the following specific information in respect of a February 2008 New Jersey Superior Court appellate decision, and it references Harrison Redevelopment Agency versus Anthony J. DeRose. That set the standard of what you should put in a notice. Anybody that wanted to challenge the procedure, if we add stuff to the notice, or we are delinquent and remove stuff from the notice, as a deviation, I would not be comfortable.
Okay.
We have, and I've been doing these type of determination and needs studies since it started pretty much around 2000, 2001. And the process was very loose in the beginning of what is appropriate under the law, and now it is by decisions in case law, if I'm using the right term, Dave, it has been narrowed of exactly what the procedures are that are acceptable.
And hopefully, by the time we get done with the first resident that has anxiety about this, hopefully, in my opinion, what I try to do whenever I'm talking in front of a bunch of people is I try to address a whole bunch of stuff with the first person. I try to answer questions that I am perceiving that other people in the audience are going to have. So in a perfect world, we address, half of the questions that half of the audience has by the time we're done speaking to the first resident. So the other 30 people out there say, oh, okay, that was my question, I'm good. So I think what we do is we take our time with the first resident that comes up here and has questions. We take our time and we just go step by step by step by step and spoon feed it so that not just that resident understands it, but that everyone out in the audience understands it and gets it and says, that was my question. Okay, I'm good with that.
And nobody's taking their house away from them.
Correct.
Right,
So-
that's one of the first things that we'll reinforce, and I try to put a few of the major items. Non-condemnation, meaning that no one is going to be designated by the borough as being someone that can take your property.
You know what's
And the
the-
borough's not going to take
Yeah.
your property. This is your property, and you have every right to use it any way you want to do. Keep it, sell it, it's your property rights, you're not affected at this at all. Also, I'm going to reinforce that you're zoning, that you're zoned right now, what you've been used to, in your property, will always remain unchanged until such time That's if someone wants to redevelop a property that they own, only time that any zoning change can occur is if the owner of that property comes in and does a redevelopment agreement with the government. But we're not looking to change any of the zoning, any rights or anything else. Any zoning that may come about in a future redevelopment plan is an overlay zoning, and it only becomes effective when a property owner becomes a named redeveloper for whatever purpose.
But again, we gotta embellish. The first time we talk about non-condemnation, in my opinion, we have to embellish upon what exactly that means, because maybe not everybody knows exactly the criteria of non-condemnation, so.
Nobody has any rights to take anybody's
So the
property.
first, but I'm saying, the first person that comes up and asks about it, we embellish upon that, and we say, non-condemnation, and then we just go into a little bit in layman's terms about what that entails, what we can and can't do, what we're not gonna do, what the property owner retains the right to do, and, my biggest thing is, I don't want anybody to have anxiety about this. I want this to be a wonderful thing for the town. I want it to be a good thing for the town. I don't want anybody to get all upset and think that we're trying to take something away from them. I want it to be positive.
This just gives another opportunity for property owners that are along the study area. If they wanted to be part of a redevelopment process by private means, outside of any government action of taking or condemnation, but it provides us as an opportunity.
May I, if I may, just touching on Fred's point, the mayor's already put out some information on this, on our newsletters to address the town. We may consider just putting that newsletter back up on our website possibly at the same time as the mailing. And if she gets a bunch of calls, she could just say, just go check out all the information there.
That's a completely separate process, as long as
But
it's
it-
not in
but
my
it-
That's what I
envelope.
was gonna
As long as
ask.
it's
Why
not
you
in my
take those
envelope.
boxes?
We do something like that.
That's what we could probably do.
Maybe mayor and council do something like that.
We could do that.
I was just,
It's already been out there.
it's already out there, you could reinforce that,
That's
don't
right.
put anything new.
Nothing
just
new,
close to it.
what we've already said. That's a good
I
idea.
mean, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah,
I.
we're still gonna get
I
buses.
can calls
return to that,
that
too.
surprise you sometimes.
Yeah, we are absolutely going to
I'm
have
sure Mr. Knight has
some
some
questions.
of the calls that you get, and understood, and we take the time and we explain it to them.
You got it.
Anything else, Mr. Bach?
So with that, I'll be returning whenever it is agreed upon by governing body and the clerk, or when they hear it.
Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we're going to open up the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to speak on anything at all, come up to the front and state your name and address and be heard. Mr. Charlie?
How you doing? Charles Buckheim, 223 Sutterfield Road. Only comment I would have is, did I hear him say about 350 properties?
That's what, yeah, that was
Okay.
the last notation I have is
The only thought I had sitting back there is you may want to consider having a different venue, maybe like Trent's Auditorium. How about if half of them show up, 175 people? There's no room for them in here. Just a suggestion.
And
Thank you.
if I may, we never can anticipate that. We've actually had study areas that are twice the size, and we have 4 people show up, so I'm exaggerating, of course. So what would absolutely happen is, if we have the hearing and we're over capacity, we will adjourn it.
Yes.
We will adjourn the hearing, and we will say, and Joyce, this might not be a bad idea, do we know where we would go? If
Harry Williams Building.
Harry Williams Building. So we would adjourn it to the next meeting at the Harry Williams, same date or whatever, a month later at the Harry Williams Building. We can make that announcement right then, and I believe that would continue notice.
Is that right, Dave?
That'll continue
Yeah,
notice.
yeah, because the worst thing we could do is have people say they're in the hallway, and they couldn't hear, and they couldn't be.
Right,
participating.
absolutely, no.
We would just adjourn, and adjourn it, and do the public notice, continue it the next month at the Harry Williams Building.
Capacity here is 99, I believe, right? Is that what it is?
No, we don't, we don't. We don't want to talk about capacity.
Right. Capacity, 99?
We don't want to talk about that.
It depends on the temperature.
Magnolia, when they had the Magnolia Commons,
they had an overflow crowd, and they moved it the same night to another area.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable adjourning it
I agree.
to another night.
Somebody gets hurt.
That's always my fear is, what if
If you're not
somebody,
set up for it, how can you set up for it ahead of time?
well, and what if somebody is rushing or somebody had a car breakdown? There's too many things that could happen that could make us repeat the whole process. That way, if we adjourn it completely to another night, you continue notice by making.
That
Do
way
you
we-
have to do a re-notification
No.
to all?
Let's continue notice.
No, that's why you would, that's why with Dave's help, we would put the right stuff on the record, and then it's completely appropriate.
And that way the higher wheels are already set up,
Yes.
No, central air is
ready,
good.
ready to
But
go.
I would not do that unless,
No,
you'd be surprised.
You never know.
I'm not
You
gonna
never
jinx,
know.
I am not gonna jinx myself.
Right.
But that would be the procedure I would recommend if we do start getting, higher than expected, or we start seeing capacity. I'm sure you guys will tell me if we do.
sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll just open. Anyone else have anything they want to discuss this evening? All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Wachowski, second.
Thank you.
Mr. Liberty, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 7:40.